Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, episode 4, really fantastic episode, although I'm a little conflicted. There's a side of it that's a little conflicted with what they're doing with Kano. Basically, this episode has established that, yes, we've gotten the whole band together, all of them come together. I like how they've kind of revealed, a little bit of Kiwi's side, how sort of hesitant she was in order to meet the other people, but still puts herself out there. And yes, reveals what I thought that she was going to be, which is more kind of timid than anything, despite the fact that she's always been this very bombastic and loud person. It seems like her experience with her class did change her. She's very much so mellowed out. She's very much so, I wouldn't say introvert, but it's kind of in that category. Somebody that's a little bit afraid of showing themselves. It has definitely kind of damaged her public view. The only real instance that we got in the previous episode of her going in the public was going to the store. And when she went to the store, she was very much so covering herself up. But I assume that might have been a case of her just trying not to let her classmates see her. She's hiding herself. But no, it just seems like that's her personality overall. Even though she's gone to an entirely different town, it seems like, or at least district, she's still covering herself up. She's still hiding who she is. And so that was kind of the answer there. I was kind of conflicted whether or not she would, come out there and suddenly be the bombastic person. It still seems like she's pretty comfortable whenever she's around Mahiru, but it seems like everybody else, yeah, she's covering herself up. She's a little bit more afraid of showing herself, which was cute to have the others kind of acknowledge, oh, the pink carrot looks so cute. A lot of idols do that, all that kind of stuff, or pop stars and whatever do that. So they were like very accepting of her, which I thought was really great. It kind of broke that ice. Even, well, technically they had to break the ice again once they got back to the apartment, but it still shows that she is affected by her experience at school, but at the same time, at least putting herself out there. She's not going to hide away and constantly be this thing of, can we pull her out of that? So it was a really good kind of movement for her. And again, technically gets the whole band together. We finally get everybody together. But no, the other side of this episode was definitely, obviously, around the previous idol group, Sunflower Dolls, whatever. The group that Kano was a part of. And yes, getting into what seemed to be her driving force, which I honestly felt like was kind of, at first thought, it feels like it's very counter to what Kano sort of presented herself as early on. In the earlier episodes, Kano was saying, I used to be this, they pushed me out, or at least I had this whole scandal, which we don't know quite yet, and I'll get my predictions on that in a minute. I had this thing, they pushed me away, the scandal happened, and now I'm doing this anonymously, so that essentially all my haters from before, they're going to love this new anonymous self. And then eventually at some point I can reveal or whatever, I don't think she intended that she was going to reveal, but her whole idea was to get them to like her, and then them not knowing that it's actually the person they hated so much. So it is kind of one of those aspects of like, flipping the bird to the old life and the old people and everything like that, while at the same time creating a new thing. But this episode really does cement the idea that she's not letting this go. This has been, even though it feels like early on she's pushing it away and saying, I don't need this, I'm going to do my own thing. It seems like everything is driven by that. So it does become one of those little difficulties, and I'm curious if they'll actually get into it in this regard, that you're not letting it go. You're still stuck in the past. You're not moving forward. Even though it seems like she is strong in the idea that she's not letting this keep her down, she's obsessed with it. She's stuck on it. And I think that's kind of solidified in this episode, in the idea that she has to get this out before then. I have to beat them. I have to get in, and she's frustrated because they won't listen. Well, we have school, we have my job, I have to video editing, all this other stuff I got to do. But we got to get this done before then. No, you need to get it done by then. What is the purpose? It's kind of mean how Kiwi's pushing it, but she's right. What is your obsession with this? What is your source? That was dumb. What are you trying to push this so much for? Why are you obsessed with this date? Why now? And yes, eventually Kim, which I'm surprised it took so long to Kim to pick up on that, because I guess because she's not obsessed with Sunflower. She's obsessed with Kano. She's obsessed with Tachibana. She's not obsessed with that group. So it does make sense that she would be taking a little bit while to jump up on that. But the whole point is here, she finally realized, oh yeah, Sunflowers. They got their big return is happening next week. That's what Kano is trying to beat. So that's her obsession. That's what's driving her. And thus that's the whole reason for this. So it is interesting that they sort of have the girls acknowledge that there is a selfish reason why she wants to push it so much. But it's nice to kind of have, at least when they get that context from her sister, oh, this is important to her. Especially Kiwi. She's like, yeah, I experienced sort of the same thing. I have a little confession moment with everybody. Everybody has that confession moment where they all tried something, they failed miserably, and people didn't like it, and here they are again. And Kiwi, even Kiwi, I think, especially because she's saying, I tried this thing, I was successful, and then I tried this and I failed. It sort of kind of lines it more in with Kano, but yeah, they all have a story of something they liked and then they failed. Even though technically with Mahiru, it's literally something completely different. It's that she's in love with something, which it seems to imply that it's not what they think it is. I don't think we've got any sort of implying about what that is, but she's saying that she likes something and everybody's freaking out, but I don't think it's quite what they think it is. So it kind of cut screens and left it there. But no, because they all can sort of relate in some way to Kano, it's nice that they're all agreeing, let's support her. Even though it is a selfish request, they can technically do it, so they push themselves. We can't be here every day, so let's go ahead and just work all night, get it done. And yes, as we see, it goes viral. It didn't quite, I don't know that it technically implied, maybe the post itself set a date. It sort of made it feel like it was like literally overnight. They put it all together and posted it, and it went viral. But I'm certain it took a few days for them to do it, but they obviously met it. Now the question mark is, what is the purpose here? I know that she's trying to prove herself, but I guess it's because she wanted to do it before they re-debuted. She wants to beat them at that. But the question mark will be, what's the effect here? What is the purpose of her trying to get it out before Sunflower, unless it's just completely personal? Because, again, she's anonymous. What would be the point of that? So that gets into the whole thing with Sunflower themselves. Already calling it... See, I've been debating this for a while, because when they brought up the story about Kano and Tachibana and the whole Sunflowers thing, the whole point here was that there was a scandal. That there was rumors that Kano punched somebody, which I think they said was Mello. So she punched one of the members. They had a dispute. She punched one of the members, and that's a whole scandal. It was never confirmed, but there's speculation that somebody attacked somebody, assaulted somebody. Now, jump forward. Now we get the full context, or at least some of the context from the sister. That yes, Kano really loved her mother because her parents got a separation, and she just kind of attached to the mother. Even the sister insinuates that she's the opposite of me, which would imply either she doesn't like the mother or she likes the father more. But anyways, she liked the mother, and so much that she wanted to prove herself and do whatever she wanted to make her happy. And yes, we find out that this famous Yukine, this famous producer, is an idol producer and the producer of Sunflower. So that was the whole point there, is that apparently she made a group or under her mother, and then eventually they had this whole thing. There was a dispute, and then she left. Now, I'm assuming at this point, because Kano sort of shut herself away, it hasn't implied that she's still connected with the mother, that it implies that they had a falling out too. What I would assume, because of how much emphasis this episode put on how obsessed Mello is to the mother, that I'm assuming that when they were a group, at some point, calling it now, Mello was so obsessed with the mother that she was jealous of Kano, and that she kept pushing Kano over and over and over again until eventually they had a dispute, and they fought, and they broke off. Now, it did imply that Kano was extremely obsessed with, pushing and pushing, getting results, and that could have bumped heads with Mello. It's sort of one of those things where, yes, you can have a lot of cases where somebody is so pumped up and pushing progress that eventually it bothers those that don't want to work as hard. It's the overworking, too serious person and everybody else that wants to just enjoy their time, and that butts heads. Anytime you get somebody that's got too much energy, too much push, they're going to bump heads with those that have less. What I think actually happened here is more of a case of the overly serious Kano bumping heads with somebody that's trying to prove herself mellow. Now, my initial assumption was going to be that it was going to be that typical story of the center fight, where you have an idol group, there's always got to be a center, and then you have two people that want to be the center, and they butt heads. It's a very common story in an idol series. It's who's going to be the leader, who's going to be the face of the group, who's going to be the middle that's singing and everything. That's a big point of conversation and conflict. And that could have been it. It could have been that Mello wanted, again, she's obsessed with the producer, wants to prove to the producer, and again, kind of wants to do right to her mother and succeed in her mother's care. And the two of them butt heads, and then they got a conflict, and then boom. Now, I'll be curious if it will actually go the route of that she actually punched her. My assumption, again, is that Mello, being obsessed with Yukine, probably staged it. She probably pushed Kano's buttons or whatever, touched upon his buttons, until eventually she lashed back out. Or, again, Mello could have simply just framed her in some way, punched herself, hit herself in the face, and then said, yeah, she hit me. And then Kano's like, whatever, I'm out of here. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards. But it would be more nice if it was actually something like a conflict that Kano did lash out. I sort of get the impression that Kano is sort of gruff enough. She's not dainty. She's not a very feminine girl. She's not very dainty and flowery. Like, I could just see her being like she's got a mix of tomboy in her, basically, is what I'm saying. So I can totally see her get physical. And I would like them to actually do that for once. Just let it be. Yeah, she got physical, whatever, move on. There's a side of me that always gets frustrated with these stories where they insinuate that somebody got physical, lashed out at somebody, and then you come find out that it was all framed and, oh, it's just the conniving girl that did it. I don't know. We'll have to see. I guess it could be one of those things where maybe everybody implied that was the case and Mello just kind of went with it. Mello didn't frame her or punch herself or whatever, or hit herself and then claim that it was Kano, but more so the idea that she just ran with it. Like, oh no, that did happen. She kind of just went with it. We'll have to wait and see, but that's my current prediction, is that it's probably a dispute of two people, not so much Kano being too overwhelming to some people that want to take it more easy, but more an idea that two people that are really kind of passionate and pushing, being kind of jealous. And again, I can see Mello being jealous of Kano because of her relationship with her mother and wanting to get her out of the picture. Like, she's going to play favoritism to Kano. I got to get out of the picture. That way she can focus on me. And I could totally see that happening. So that aside, that's all I kind of think of there. But I think it's a great setup so far because it did well. And like I said, sort of setting it up as somebody trying to prove something, it turning into a reveal of, oh yeah, this is technically her not letting go her past. I like that one shot where she's actually walking down the street and she sees we basically had a shot for shot pretty much of the jellyfish painting and this whole shot. It looked like that similar shot from behind looking up at something. But it was good to kind of show what she's conflicted with, what her goal is, and I'll be curious to find out what her purpose is here. And I think it is really just her competing with her past. That's really what it seems like it's pushing towards. And again, everybody acknowledging that, but not pushing back on it and kind of accepting it and trying their best to help out Kano, which I think was fantastic. For the rest of the stuff around the sunflower thing, I do like that they're sort of implying the idea that Sunflower themselves may not have enough push, and which makes sense. This is a group that got involved in a scandal, and now they're trying to debut again, and there's going to be a lot of conflict around that. Some company wanting to back a idol group that is involved in a scandal isn't going to look too good. But it does seem like, based on Yukine sort of having to drop Yukine's name in order to get people to do things for them, is a sign that they're going to be struggling uphill. And they are technically kind of pointing out that, yeah, without Yukine's involvement, they probably wouldn't put that sign up. And yeah, if we don't do this, we're done. Like, this is it. I like how they have this whole conversation about how if they don't succeed, they're finished. And in the background, you can actually hear this. I think it was like a website that was for like recruiting. So it's like, it sort of is compounding on itself the idea of, yeah, you're going to have to be looking for another job. Like, get ready to get back into the workforce and get that application set up or that resume written out, because you're going to be finding another job. But again, it's kind of showing this idea that things aren't rosy for them. So it does at least show that, along with, Kano and her team and Jelly, them having to fight for, to go viral, whatever. It looks like Sunflower, at least without Yukine's name to be dropped all the time, is going to be struggling as well. I do like that. As much as I'm a little conflicted having to bring them into the picture and not just make this a story about Kano and Jelly, them doing their thing, it has to get the whole past kind of involved. It still at least shows both sides are going to be struggling. So if we do show more of them, we'll see how that plays out. But it's kind of interesting to have Mello sort of pointing out, why are we signing these CDs? We're selling CDs. That's so analog. And it's kind of counter to what Kano and all of them are doing. They're going viral on social media. They're using new tech. While over here you have Mello and them are signing CDs. CDs. I know, like, it's so like apparently retro now is to have CDs. But I guess technically makes sense. I mean, we're seeing year after year physical media is dying, and there's like reports coming out right now from Japan that home video releases have dropped again another year, consecutive year of these sales of home videos going down and down and down. Which is why I personally, whenever I talk about shows getting second seasons or whatever, I don't really care about Blu-ray sales. Some people keep bringing up Blu-ray sales, and I don't care. It's such a, not even a percent, like if not a percent, a single percent of the entire Japanese anime market. It just doesn't do like it used to. Like the old OVAs and stuff like that were huge. And that could probably be the same for CDs. I haven't really looked into that specifically. But yeah, I like that comparison. But my gosh, the whole scene where they're like introducing themselves to the manager and like it has this one shot with Bello and it's like, holy crap, they just like overly animated her doing her little thing. Like I think she did literally every single pose that you could probably do, like Hong Kong's, the hearts, everything. It's like whatever animator did that one shot. Chill. Outside of that, yeah, I like the interactions at the apartment. Just really kind of cool to see each of the characters coming together. Kim learning a lot about the software. Yes, talking about drivers and screwdrivers, which was kind of cheesy, but whatever. Kiwi, like I said, and her conflicts. I loved her just coming out of her shell, coming there, and again, not being her old self. It does, again, seem like that whole thing with her introduction to her new school was just something that really did affect her. And yes, Mahito just trying to keep them together and break the ice, which is super cute. But anyhow, I think that's it. But I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions of episode 4 of Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. If you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know if you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have Patreon link, tips, links, and thanks to membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and I'll take care.